What I enjoy the most when I get into a gun battle is in the situations where I don't get first shot. You know, I'm the one that's being hit. If I still have the ability, for whatever reason, to be able to turn and make a play and bring the fight into a closer, a closer match, like that's what I live for. No worries there.
Yeah.
Oh, you know? Nice.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the DroppeDead podcast. Here we have me, Monkey Man, also known as Aldo.
What's going on, guys? I'm Striker, aka Cisco.
I am Hunter, also known as Pineapple Sensei.
I'm Ben. I'm Dragon Slayer 956.
Nice. And today we're going to take a little bit of peek into the future. I want to talk about a little more about the competitive future, because we already know that this is Doc's game. Doc's a very competitive player, and he said from the beginning that this is going to be a very competitive game. I have a lot of tournaments, esports, pro action in the future. So I kind of want to talk about what we think it's going to look like. So I want to talk about now. I want to talk about the current state of the game. Do you guys think the current state of the game is competitively viable?
Yeah, I mean, I would say proof of concept is there. You know, I think what we need to settle in on is going to be like, what is the win state going to look like? Because it's hard for me to picture exactly what what the structure for competitive extraction shooters will be. You know, is it going to be kill races? You know, kind of like what Call of Duty threw on there. You know, what players kind of threw on top of the Battle Royale mode. You know, as a method to be able to compete? Is it going to be, hey, over the course of time, are you extracting a certain amount of loot? If you're the most successful in extracting, you know, you're the overall winner. So I could see a bunch of different ways that it could play out. I'm a little interested in maybe trying something new when it comes to the competitive side.
I think, like you said, we've got the concept. With other extraction games we've seen in the past, there are multiple ways to win, and they've done that even more so with this game because you can get the Deadrop, which is what people are calling the Battle Royale aspect of the game. And so, depending on your definition of winning, you could win. You could win multiple different ways. You can extract. You can get the Deadrop. Yeah, I guess that's it. There was another one that came to mind, but I just blanked on it. But yeah, basically, depending on what your version of winning is, like, that could be different than what's defined in a tournament setting. So when the devs can approach us with a more competitive ruling, I guess, then we can further analyze, like, okay, it'll really shape what is competitive and what is not. If it is just the dead drop, then yeah, everyone's just going to be competing for kills and loot becomes irrelevant. So I'd be curious what their thoughts are on that.
I think I have a question to the question. I didn't play in any of the tournaments that they've done so far. What was the overall concept of it? Was it a kill race? Was it an extraction based? What were the previous tournaments or like Aldo, when you and Cisco came in first and second, shout out to you guys. What was the structure of that tournament overall? Because I've been busy with life and you know, school in general, so I didn't really get a chance to partake in any of those.
Cisco, if you want to talk about the official tournament,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about a little more about the community tournaments that have been going on recently.
I like that. Yeah, the official tournament really was this idea of a damage race. It was the idea of how much damage you could do in your best 3 games over the course of 3 hours, I believe. So you wanted to rack up points by getting kills, doing damage, extracting, or potentially, you know, getting the dead drop, being the last man standing. So over the course of 3 hours, go for it.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It was both based on dead drop and damage.
Yeah, so there was score totals for everything. I think you got 1 point per damage that you did. So let's say you're at full health, I bring you down to 1 HP, you know, I get 99 points. I didn't finish you off, but I got 99 points worth of to my score. Then I would also get, if I finished the kill, regardless of how much damage you'd already taken, I'd get a bonus 25. A successful extraction was a bonus 50. And a dead drop was a bonus 75. So it was unique because, like, before the tournament began, I was kind of trying to game theorize it out in terms of like, hey, what is the optimal strategy here to quote unquote win? And you know, originally my thought was like, this is just going to be a kill race, and kills are going to determine all. The 25% bonus or point bonus is going to be what matters here. But looking at the scores at the end of the day, I was actually really surprised how much the damage figure played into, you know, the top 5 players in the tournament. So, you know, I thought one thing before the tournament, and after the tournament, I felt differently. And shout outs to the developers for that rule set. I think played out perfectly as they intended.
Yeah, because I know you had the highest kill game in the tournament, but I was still able to win by like 170-ish points. And that just shows like how important damage is more so than purely kills.
Exactly.
And I'll talk a little bit about because there've been a lot of tournaments in the community, so not officially hosted by Midnight. Most prominent has been by Bryson, which is a streamer YouTuber. He's been hosting like somewhat weekly tournaments. He calls them the Doom Drops. Yeah, I actually just played one yesterday. He had one yesterday, and I actually won. I know I haven't told anyone, but I did win first place. And the reward, so it was a prize pool of $1,000 for the top 3, and it was $600 for first, $250 for second, and $150 for third. So we already seen like these, what I would say high prize pools like these. That's like nuts. $1,000 just for a community tournament. So I think the tournament competitive aspect is already alive in Deadrop, which is really cool to see. But these tournaments are long, man. They're like 8 hours long, which is insane.
What's the structure of it?
And yeah, so it's actually not like the official one where everyone's playing at the same time. He's been messing around with the format, but basically it's like kill races, and it's like 2 points a kill, 4 points for an early extract. I don't know, 2 points for an early extract, 4 points for going on the elevator lift, the final extract, and then 6 points for getting the dead drop. So that's like the really simplified format, and it kind of works. But personally, I like the format of like including damage into the points, because I've already seen it so many times where people have 400 damage, but they only get 1 kill because they weren't able to secure those kills, and it means nothing now. And then there's other times where someone has 500 damage, but they have 7 kills, and like, oh, that means they stole but a lot of these kills, or, you know. Yeah. So personally, I do like how they formatted the points in the original tournament. I guess the only issue is we're talking about really high points, and that can be a little confusing to score, because you're dealing with so many numbers, and so that simplifying it does make it easier to score, but it does make it a lot longer.
It's interesting because I watch a lot of Call of Duty. I watch competitive Call of Duty religiously every weekend. I really haven't missed a day. If I did, I'm with family, and even then, I still peek on the scores like an MLB game or a football game.
Hell yeah.
It's interesting watching people like Scump and Methods, break down the match that is played, and they always and forever point out the damage, because the kills that they get may not equal like them winning the game, but if you put damage in, it's that trade-off. Aldo and I go into a game, I'm getting a lot of damage, you're just finishing off the kills, so you may have high kills, but I may have high damage. And it's interesting that Scum kind of points that out, because damage is critical to winning. It's critical to an overall success. So it honestly goes back to our definition of what do you think, what do you define as winning? So I think to answer your first question, Aldo, is the competitive scene alive in Deadrop? I do think there is. I think you guys just talked about it. I think there's so many diverse ways you can do it given the extraction type, that I really haven't seen in an extraction game like Tarkov. So I do think it's alive and well, and I think it will evolve over time to fit either an individual's need, a community need, a clan need, There's many different ways that we can even talk about it. I mean, we can go on a rant right now to say what we could speculate what it'll be like, different tournaments will be, but at the same time, we don't know.
Yeah. So now that we talked about what's like what's happened and is currently happening in the competitive scene, what do you guys think about the game format for competitive? Because like when I first envisioned Dr. Disrespect saying it's gonna be a competitive game, it's gonna have esports, it's gonna be on like esports level, esports stage. I didn't think of the game of the style we have now. Like the idea of being able to bring in loot or you have to find loot is just it doesn't seem competitive to me. And in the tournaments I've played, it's kind of rough. So in the official tournament, you were allowed to bring in anything, and I think that was a little more fair to everyone. But in this newest version for the community tournaments, no one's allowed to bring in anything. And so you have to find loot, and so that brings in a lot of RNG, which I've talked about. It's kind of annoying because now it's like an RNG kind of base. Like, did you get a bad spawn and did you find a bad gun? You're done. It's over. Like you're gonna get run up on some guy with a sniper and you have no armor. You're getting one shot no matter where they hit you. It sucks. It's kind of boring and it's kind of lame. But
I
so
mean,
yeah,
it's
that kind
sorry,
of
go
makes
ahead.
the competitive future kind of confusing for me.
I mean, I really do think we need to see much more development on the game before we can really speculate. You know, at a
Accurately
more
talk about it. Yeah.
in a more clear type of manner about what competitive could look like. I completely understand what you're saying about like RNG, and because like when we think competitive, right, the idea generally is that you're trying to create as even of a playing field as possible, right, so that you know the true skill of an individual could actually come and show itself in game, right? But you know, when I think about it in general, you know, almost no games are perfectly balanced and perfectly, you know, fair. You know, it doesn't matter if we're talking about, you know, kill races like Call of Duty, you know, Battle Royale, where you could literally make a choice to drop in one side of the map. You know, unfortunately, other players decided the same thing, you know, randomly. Or if we were talking about an actual sport, you know, a physical sport like, you know, baseball without a salary cap for the MLB, you know, like, so technically no real game is fair. The question is just like, how fair do we really want to make it for a
Yeah.
competitive sense? And to be, for, you know, from my perspective, when I think about Deadrop, like what I'm hoping for is for it to be, again, unique. You know, right now there's a lot of shooters to compete against. So if Deadrop's able to provide a different avenue or a different, you know, method of viewership for players to enjoy, I think that would be key personally. But I can also say, hey, maybe the kill race is going to be the thing that the shooter community feels is the, you know, overall best test of skill. And if that's the case, you know, then I think we're going to hear. I think it'll play out naturally itself by the way that players are hosting and creating these own tournaments on their own.
Yeah.
The key to the competitive future of this game, in my opinion, is the value of the loot. Once they add in more comic book type items that are not as common to find, right, and they actually have value or some sort of purpose other than just being a collectible, we're going to find a line that the devs are going to tread on where they go, okay, do we want this to be more towards the kill race or more towards the value and the haul that you're trying to get out in a single raid? And they'll find a good balance, I'm sure, but I think until we see the literal point of the game, which is extracting with valuable items, until we get to that core feature and see how that develops, we won't have a super fair idea of what competitive could look like in the future. Currently, we just have kill races. I mean, we have different versions of that, as we've just talked about, but I really want to see the items and the loot get incorporated.
I
Once
just
that
thought of
happens, it can
something
be great.
wild. You could have a tournament based on like a scavenger hunt. You know, like phase 10, you have to get a certain amount of certain things and in order to complete that level of competition. So I don't know if you guys have played phase 10, but like you have to get they're like normal Uno cards. Um and you have to get a certain amount of, you have to get like 1 through 10 of a specific suit, or a 1 through 10 in general. And when you do that, you complete the level, you move on to phase 2, and so forth and so on. You could incorporate that kind of, again, this is just an idea that I'm just throwing out there.
I actually tried to organize something like that. I have like a
Yeah,
Google, I have
dude,
like
that
I
sounds like
actually
so much fun.
I have like a Google Doc of like a rule set. Basically, like I have like different sections of different points, but like one section is like more of a looting scavenger hunt, where it's
Yeah,
where like no one's killing each other, but you're just running around getting loot and like you get scores off that.
yeah.
It didn't get any traction or like in like
No, that
in the
sounds like so
Discord.
much
So
fun.
like obviously I never went through with it, but it is an idea I did have, and I tried to make it live, but
It sounds like it caters more towards like the casual player like me,
yeah, that was the point of it.
rather than like sweating sweating my brains out trying to kill people or get damage and stuff. Like I'm just going in and looking
Yeah,
for a specific
I had
item or
stuff
item.
like, oh, comic books are worth this
Yep.
points, and then I had like special ones like, oh, you have 3 consecutive comic books, you get a bonus.
There you go.
You have
That's like
seven,
a
eight, nine.
trap.
You found 7, 8, 9. Boom, you get a bonus 25 points. Or like the rare one was like, oh, you have 7 consecutive books in one raid. Oh, that's like mega points. But
I mean, if I'm going to throw out a little bit here about what I'm really hoping for in the long run with competitive, at the top down level, like what I think competitive shows right now, what these tournaments show right now, is that the fundamental flow of the game feels good. Okay, it can always be improved, but the feel is there. Your movement, your shooting, your jumping, your decision making around the map. The competitive aspect really does show that, hey, proof of concept, they've done it. Okay, now it's about refining and pushing it to the next level. But the key for me really is going to be it just exactly like what you were saying earlier, although about like these community-driven tournaments, this community-driven events. I think that's where the key really lies, and I'm excited to see, hopefully, esports organizations that Midnight Society's already partnered with at different times. I'm really excited to see if they're willing to take a shot about building their brand into a world like this by introducing their own type of events, or host their own tournaments, their own prize
Yeah, I
pools.
was gonna say even sponsoring them. Yeah.
Yeah, even sponsoring them. Like, so, like my key really right now is when I think of esports organizations, I understand that right now it's been pretty tough for them over the past like year or two in terms of like being able to raise funds and continue growing and progressing. Same thing with streamers, like Dr. Disrespect, Lupo, Z-Laner, all of them really, like there's been a turn in the market. So I'm hoping that games like Deadrop and others allow them to be able to take that next step in terms of like building a brand and building a business within these digital worlds. So, that may be throwing the dart really far out there, but that is the long-term vision that I'm hoping will be achieved.
all right, let me bring out another thing. How long do we think until we see like a real of like official competitive scene? Like, do you think we're gonna have to wait all the way up to the final game release, which is probably gonna be in a couple years, or do you think that we'll be at some point along the Snapshot development that an official competitive scene can be established?
That's a good question. Very good
Hunter, go
question.
ahead.
I'm doing some real deep thinking. We we still have AI that has to be introduced into the game. Some
Yeah.
form of that, I think, called cleaners. I don't know if that would even be in a competitive mode, if they would just take that out and it's just players. We still have,
Don't put that in.
hopefully, and this is just speculation, but hopefully new forms of movement and utility. Utility being either grenades or weapons or something brand new that we're not sure about yet. I'm kind of thinking, like, for whatever reason, I'm thinking Fortnite. Like, when Fortnite first came out, day one, I played day one, right? You had, like, the AR, the shotgun, the pistol, the rocket launcher, and it just worked. It was, like, classic weapons everybody knew, and then a building mechanic. That was its shtick, right, was building. And they always would improve upon that, and the game wasn't, like, fully released, right? It was in a beta. for I want to say years until it was like,
Years.
Long
here it
time.
is. But the game gained traction, got really competitive before it was fully released. So I don't want to say, like, never say never. I think Deadrop can get to that point. I just think we need some new mechanics first before we're going to see true competitive natures to this game.
For sure.
Yeah,
I'm probably thinking around like 3 more snapshots before we get anywhere close. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's at
probably
least a
thinking
year, I'm gonna
snapshot
say.
snapshot 8 is by minimum, right? Like that's if they focus on gameplay purely and not on world building, which we know they are focusing on heavily. So
I think I'm not gonna say when because I really don't know and I don't want to speculate that. I don't. I think we'll get a taste of it in some snapshot, but I don't think we'll get it right at launch. And I think it'll be probably a year until we get solid, effective, competitive play
after the launch
um,
of the game.
after the launch of the game.
Oh, that's a lot. So
Uh,
that's like 3
Because
years
I think that they're
minimum.
like you said, they're focused on map design, world design, game game functionality and gameplay. It took COD a long time to bring in competitive Warzone because they kept fixing other stuff that was in the game that's broken. And kind of reverting back to your comment earlier, Cisco, about streamers and people struggling. I just think that's on the developers not making effective games anymore. Early 2000s, on the games when you bought a disc, you had to buy a disc. Games were complete. There were some bugs in them, but you got past them. It didn't break the game entirely. When I can't move across, a Mazra, I can't play the game anymore. And I think a lot of people are just kind of fed up with some of the games that are out there right now, that it's affecting streamers' income, it's affecting streamers' lives. It's become monotonous, it's become boring because there's not really much to play out there. So I think if they take their time with the competitive scene, I don't think we'll get it right at launch to make it a solid competitive playlist.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with you. If I had to, side on one end, I would say that it doesn't come out until after launch. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it's a year or two after that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I just don't think I forgot who said it on the stage at Arlington. I think it was Quinn maybe, that he said, you don't choose esports chooses you.
Yep.
And so like that's why I tend to think that if an esport, if a really settled in competitive scene is, officially launches, I think it's going to be player driven or esport organization driven or streamer driven, rather than developer driven first off. That may not be the case. It's a speculation. It's a guess, but I tend to lean on that end. Going back to what Hunter also said earlier, I think the moment that we actually get value, entered into the game through collectibles, cosmetic skins, once value starts to enter in the ecosystem, I believe that every player's thought process in terms of how to play the game and what the game is going to change. I think right now what people are, this is completely guess, but I think what people are feeling and thinking Deadrop is right now is just about mechanics. It's all about how the mechanics make you feel. And I think once that other part comes in, everyone's mind will change automatically.
Yep. When it's consistent.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
All right. Going along that train of thought, what do you think the economic, factor is going to be implemented? Is it going to be? Are we going to have to wait till full game release? You think
Yes,
some aspect of
totally.
it?
Yeah.
There's no way they add anything economic wise in terms of like a black market, like what we see with CS:GO skins or anything of the sort, any version of that until the game's fully released and everyone has access to that market. I don't think there's going to be a need to take the players you currently have and try testing that. because you wouldn't want people to test your market with real money. That could create so many issues for them. So I think when the game's fully released, that's when they will introduce something where maybe they do have a black market, or maybe it's all an ecosystem that's built into the game and there is no third party type black market.
Take it away, Cisco. I know you have a lot
I
of
mean,
thoughts about
this is the one I love, man. I completely respect all of y'all's concepts on it. I think the exact opposite. I think that we've already started with the experimentation of the economics in the game, and that it's going to grow from here by the fact that we have these NFT, profile pictures. There's not very much. I mean, there's activity. We can look online right now and we can see how much value has been transacted back and forth through players. I think it's more dangerous when we talk about an economy to launch with a theoretical economy to hundreds of thousands of players all at the same time for players to be able to manipulate or attempt to extract value, put in value. I think it's more dangerous for all that to happen rather than a slow run up. So if I had to guess, it's tough because I'm trying to separate what I think they're going to do versus what I want them to do. And like from a player's perspective, what I would want would be for a slow ramp up of the economy. Start very small, maybe just because right now the game's gated, right? You have founders and claws that bought a pass at a certain time. I think that gate is going to remain until release, and there'll be more opportunities for the gate to be lower, new players to get in, but it won't be fully open yet until release. So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it starts really small, really slow, with maybe those season 0 cosmetic skins that'll be allowed to be traded, or be collected in game. We're not talking about major activity. At least I don't expect that's what their content's. Or that's what I hope they'll do. Slow ramp up, and then in release, the big moment of trying to onboard a lot of players and really have the economy kickstarted. That's what I hope as a player. Trying to separate myself out, I get the feeling like they are wanting to I get the feeling they want to put as much time in between when that happens and them building. So the longer they could delay it, I have a feeling that's what they want to do. Delay it, get everything else of the game ready. The movement mechanics, the level design, maybe a competitive aspect, and then talk about economy. I don't know if that would necessarily be successful, but those are my 2 cents.
For sure.
I don't have many thoughts about it because I just don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about that kind of economy. I don't know anything about, crypto in general, or, the most that I've ever been exposed to it was our NFT, was our founders pass. I don't know how to navigate it. I don't know how to construct it, but, I guess the one thought that I do have is if it were to be implemented beforehand. And again, I'm very naive in this topic. If it were to be implemented somewhat before actual game release, I feel like the players who play day one are so far behind the 8 ball about what's going where, that stuff, unless you really do your research or know a lot about NFT and crypto and things like that, then they're behind a lot, and that could affect overall player experience. That could take the focus off the game and focus on the money aspect strictly. I know for a fact there are people out there who play CSGO just to get money. It's a business for them, and I think if I know Doc wants to make a great game, a great, fun, competitive game. And if it's all about business and crypto and NFT on day one, then the focus on the game is taken away. So I think if you implement stuff in stages or phases, I think that would have a much more positive impact on the day one players and the founders in general. You grow together in that aspect rather than beforehand. Now, granted, you do have to like test and do all of this stuff, but then I recommend just taking that stuff out until after game release. I don't know. Again, I am naive. I know nothing really about that. Those are just some of the thoughts that I had as far as the monetary financial stuff of the game.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because I completely understand what you're saying, and I completely agree with it. You're right. You're right. A lot of people are going to come in, and it really depends on how complex they go. Maybe the only thing that can be bought or sold are just skins. Maybe it's just CS:GO but on the blockchain. And if that's the case, that there's a way where players can feel comfortable because they've already seen it for years. But also, there's some added benefit that you're not locked inside the Steam ecosystem. You have the ability to actually extract the value out if you want. There's a lot of extra freedom that comes with it. But with freedom comes, responsibility and learning and understanding. There's plenty of ways to get hacked if you don't know what you're doing. And, it's something to be careful with.
To be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely something that needs to look. We're here in the United States, like we barely have enough financial education in our school systems, let alone to talk to people about how to work with crypto responsibly. So it's a real big hurdle, and that's why I just wanted to get any type of info that the devs are willing to share on it. Just these are important questions, and I think that I know they're obviously thinking about it. Just love to be a fly on that wall,
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I just got out of network security and cyber security. Those are the two classes that I just completed, and it was all about exposing vulnerabilities and firewalls and attackers and hackers and malware and different types of tools that hackers use to obtain different information. Crypto was one of the topics that I spoke on in one of my discussions, and it's terrifying what people are capable of doing. And there's a real danger that goes along with this stuff. And if it's not taken as a priority, a lot of people are going to get affected, and a lot of people are going to hurt, and a lot of people are going to have their lives turned upside down. I'm not saying that to scare anybody, but there is a real danger to it if you do not take care of yourself as a person dealing with the crypto and the monetary stuff of this. But it's also important that you raise awareness of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that the technology exists, and there are negatives. Yeah. There are negatives to it. I'm a personal believer that there's more freedom that's available to people, and I mean, I'm interested to see what players do with that type of freedom. And just keeping an eye on it from there. Hopefully we'll be able to see exactly how the devs really want to implement it. Slow and steady, I think, is the right course. Slow and steady with education. Maybe they back off of it. To be quite honest, maybe they fully back off of it. Maybe the NFT for our NFT for Midnight Society, that is a studio NFT that is related to the studio that's making this game, not necessarily the game itself. So I've seen plenty of examples where all that extra labor and work that a player might have to put in to learn this stuff, it's taken away. There's another studio that just recently released a game on the App Store called NFL Rivals, where you can buy and sell NFL players for the game, cards of the players, but they actually do it themselves. The company itself manages all of that. You just have your own little account the same way you do on Steam, and you don't have to worry about learning all the extra stuff. So it can be done multiple ways.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept overall.
Definitely just gonna have to wait to hear more. I mean, there's nothing else we can really do.
Yeah,
we do hear more
speculation. We just gotta keep talking about it until it happens, and then we get to talk more about the stuff that's happened. That's the fun part.
Exactly.
I think that's Cisco's favorite part is all this, you know, economy stuff. My not current favorite part because it's not in the game currently, kind of is, but what I'm looking forward to is when this game is fully released and we've got a free to play game that anybody can jump onto, and they get into a game with a founder, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's a founder." I hope there's some kind of it factor to that. I think I've mentioned that before on the cast, but I
Yeah.
really, really, really want some form of the founders to stand out and to have a target on their back. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe it's just that the dog tags of founder cost a little more on the market. Whatever it may be, right? Kind of like if you kill someone in Tarkov who's level 50, it's gonna sell for more than a level 2 player that you kill.
Yeah.
Could be as simple as that, right? But I hope there is something, and my prime example was the Apex Legends champion start, where you start up a match and it shows you who the champion is at the previous match. I would love an intro like that for each session of the game for founders. I think
I
it'd
think
be cool.
it's a great idea. I think it's a
Or
great
the
idea.
that
Fortnite
could be pretty
crowns.
cool.
The
Oh, has that
Fortnite
been?
crowns as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, when you win a victory royale, you gain a crown in the next game. That if you die, other players are allowed to pick up, and they gain an XP bonus.
and if you win while wearing the crown, you have a counter that goes up, and that is the current like flex thing to do, which is
Yep.
genius on Fortnite's part because
Yep.
little kids get to flex about that, but then they crave getting more wins. You win once, and it guarantees that that person will play the next match because they have a crown. No one's gonna
Yep.
get a crown and just go, "Oh, I got the crown. I'm gonna get off for the day." Right? They
Yep.
will play the next match, and if they keep winning, they will keep playing. Like it's genius model to to
Right.
keep people engaged, I should say, without trying to make it sound like an addiction.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Maybe like a specific armor glow or something like that.
I mean,
Something.
the idea is the Cortex, right? Claws don't have the Cortex. Founders do.
Yeah, they stand out, but not as much as they could, in my opinion. Like current Deadrop, you notice the Cortex is because almost everybody's got one, right? Because there's
Yeah.
only like 20,000 people playing the game right now, and of that, it's mostly the founders playing, I would assume. But like when they respawn, I'm talking sins. When regardless if you're a founder or a claw, when you respawn as a sin, and you've got that like glow effect or whatever it is, right? Not only like what you're
Yeah.
seeing at the whole red, but when you see a sin and they're kind of like glowing or whatever to
Mhm.
stand out. I think that's like not distracting, but an example of that is like, yeah, visor cortexes could stand out even more because in my opinion the sins stand out more than the visor cortexes, but maybe that's just me.
No,
just
I think
noticed
you're
more.
right. I think you're right. I think to really notice the cortex, you have to be up in
Get
their
it
face.
close. Yeah.
Yeah. I still think the cortex is such a cool concept though, because it's not like we all have the same one. We all have different ones. We all have we're variants.
Yep.
I think that's a cool concept, but I do agree that there is something else that can allow us to stand out totally from a distance, no matter where you are. But again, that I don't like a target on my back because I'm not good at the game.
Oh man.
I don't want to get sweated on.
I mean, there's plenty of ways that it doesn't just necessarily need to be where you're the target. It could be where you're also the ally, right? You need to be able to find a
Yeah.
partner to be able to do a certain thing or whatnot. Like
Very true.
it's a rare feat, in the game or whatnot. So it can
That's
definitely
very
play
true.
both ways. So when we talk about the idea of like, especially in the competitive scene, when we talk the idea about like being a variant or being a founder, the cortex is like, having a way to be able to show off, a little bit of status rep, related to you as a player. I really think we need to have a game, that I know it's really hard to say, but like that stands the test of time, like Call of Duty or no CS:GO, for example, and the reason why the gun skins are valuable is because that community has been fostered for years and years. And yes, there's times where the player base dips, and there's times where it comes back, you know. But the brand of Counter-Strike has been there for a while. You know what I mean? And I
It's been like 2 decades, right?
Yeah, first and foremost,
20 plus years.
yeah, first and
Man.
foremost, the game has to succeed without any economic implementation. Like if it's not a good game, it doesn't matter what skins are going to be part of it.
and that's what makes it so hard, because there's like so many shooters that we were talking
Yeah.
about Overwatch, you know, right before we started recording, you know, and there's going to be plenty of more shooters that are going to come out. So like, how does Deadrop stand out? How does it, you know, stand the test of time? How does it continue to evolve and grow? And, you know, one of the weird things for me, and I don't really know what it means, but it's in my mind, you know, I believe Rob said it on stage and has said it multiple times, like in the founders events, that like there will come a point in time where the studio may like move off and leave it in the hands of the players with like user created content or whatnot. And so like, what does that world look like? You know, what you know, it saying that from the very beginning really does put a level of responsibility on the players, you know. And with responsibility and effort, I mean, theoretically come rewards too. So the idea of like the founders may evolve more than what we even think that they are right now. Because if a studio is going to transition to their next game and they're going to go hands off, you know, who would you assume would be the next, you know, who's going to bear the next torch? And my thoughts would be it has to be the founders, but, you know, could be someone else, could be something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
Just
Yeah.
kind of swapping topics a little bit, because I want to ask this question before we wrap up today. While you were saying that, it came to mind, and kind of what I was saying earlier is that we've got 20,000 people that are in on this right now, currently, right? The Claws and the founders. I'm not sure what the server situation looks like. I assume they have like a North American server and then probably a European server type thing.
I
You know,
believe
combine
it's just
everybody.
I believe it's just North American.
I agree.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's
I've
just-
played it.
just NA.
I've talked to a couple people play in like Europe and all that. They said it's pretty rough.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So with that, with the number 20,000 people, I can queue up at almost any time of day, and I'm not finding matches. Like I'll randomly just hop on, and there's just nothing, right? So I was just gonna pose the question to you guys: is that fixable? Is that on the devs' end or our end? Is it that we are just not motivated enough to keep playing the game and trying to test the same thing? Is it not fun enough, or is it that
Yeah,
the devs need to promote more than just a single day? Or what is it? Fridays?
Yeah, it's
Deadrop Friday?
just no one's playing. I mean, not to
Yeah.
put you guys on the spotlight, but when was the last time you guys played?
I've tried, I think, for the last 2 weeks, and I've gone into one game the last 2 weeks. And granted, I get home and I play around 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because I got work all day. So I'm playing later at night, and maybe that's just not the optimal time. But I've probably gone one game the last 2 weeks, and there were 3 people in it. So I have not touched the game in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just no one
No.
plays the game.
I
Yeah,
think
no one's playing.
I think to be fair, you know, and this is where the expectation part of it from the player's mindset comes in. I don't think it's fair at this point in development to assume that lobbies would be full. You know, I think that because, like, I think what we're learning as players is that the way that the development process rolls out and as new content starts to become available, I think what's more important for the devs is that you have that big group come in when that information is available or when that new content is available. Like, I don't like if let's say lobbies were full right now, I really don't think there's much of a benefit for the devs. Like, my guess was just the reason why they sold the season pass was because they wanted to fund up the server to be able to start to do these things, and those
Absolutely.
costs will continue as the game grows. So
I think it does though, because like the feel of the game with compared to from a full lobby to like I play right now, and like if you're not playing in some sort of tournament, you're getting like 6 people max, and that's like you're in a call with people and they all queue up at the same time, you're getting 6, maybe 8. Like the flow of that from an 8-man lobby to a full, what it's supposed to be more than 32. I mean, we're talking 36ish people in a lobby at once compared to 8. I mean, it plays completely different, and I think without those full lobbies, they don't know how the game is gonna flow. They
I
had
Yeah,
a
think,
sneak,
to experience that.
they had a
yeah,
sneak peek in the beginning where all the lobbies were full because the snapshot just came out, and so they got a really good peek of it. But without seeing, but then people have just started playing the game. They don't know all the features, all the guns, the metas, all that. So now when everyone already has like things figured out, it's 8-man lobbies, and they don't know how the game flows.
yeah. I think I do think that they could do a better job of stress testing their servers, stress testing the game. Um, do like once a month. I don't know how busy Friday night dead drops are. Um, and I don't know if it goes from 8 to 10 people on Friday night or even bigger lobbies. But I think, yeah, just I don't think anybody's really playing it at the moment. And I think that's on our end to just play the game more. But at the same time, I do think the devs should take advantage of and promote more playability to stress test the game, stress test the patches that they're doing. I know those are few and far between, but they could. Jeez, my dog just barked. But I do think that they need to stress test the game a little bit more.
A little peek into like the stress testing. Some of the servers, like even with like 8 people, they get bad. Like some servers become unplayable with the amount of lag, desync, and it's like across everyone. I know in the tournament that just happened, there was like a one game where everyone just like stopped moving, rubber banding, server completely just died. And I know that's been common a lot.
Yeah.
That's expected, of course. That's expected to happen, and we see that with AAA games still currently. That's not a bad thing. It
Right.
just means that there's room for improvement.
I don't know. I really don't dock them for it. Like we live in a
No, I
world.
don't either.
We live in a world where gamers are jumping from game to game to game. And yes, you may have your like forever game that you play that you go back and forth to, but the second a new title comes out, you go. If you're not interested, you go. Like, I mean, there's a reason why people like say like video games are disposable media, like that. Like you get what you need from it and you move on. And so like my thing is just that like I don't think it is your responsibility to as a player to be playing 24/7 because you love the game and you want to support the game. I think it's okay to put it down. I know for a fact, going back to 2019, 2020, playing the early crypto games, like guys were in there farming for gold, farming for coins to be able to sell and make money. And they were putting in like an ungodly amount of hours to try to just make a value, okay, to be able to make a living or make money. And like it leads to burnout. Like you burn out, you don't enjoy it anymore, so like even if Deadrop had launched and was 100% complete right now, I still wouldn't fault any players for playing for a month and then moving on, because that's the average cycle. Like a game releases, you hit your peak in terms of maximum players at the middle or the end of month 2. And after that, it tails and drifts down till you find a floor until the next DLC comes. It's just like that's just how we play. That's just what we do, And I know the developers they know that, obviously. This is different because we're starting earlier, and I think that if an economic system gets in play, that tail will be different. But it's all theory. It's all.
Yeah.
So do you think then I have a question. Do you think that's why Fortnite has been so successful is because of the amount of DLC, the amount of skins? They have Star Wars, they have Destiny, they have Marvel, they have anime like Attack on Titan and Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia. Like they have so many skins, but the game is relatively the same. Do you think that's why Fortnite has been so successful? Prior to let me preface, prior to uh, Unreal Engine 2.0.
Yes, absolutely, 100
Yeah.
times. Yes.
I 100% agree as well. And I think, I don't want, Deadrop to kind of go that route, to have all of those IPs in the game, but the game stay the same. I hope that if they do something like that, again, this is all speculation, all speculation. If they do something like that, I hope it's more specific and more driven to the game itself rather than pulling in IPs and keeping the game the same. Because the movement in Fortnite, the movement's the same, the jumping's the same, the weapons are the same. All of it is the same. It's just you play as Venom, you play as Spider-Man, you play as Obi-Wan, you play as Goku and Vegeta and Eren Yeager and all of those guys. I think that's an interesting concept, but I 100% agree that that's how I think Fortnite has been so successful prior to Unreal Engine 2.0.
I'm gonna just make a strong comment on that one. Like, I agree with you. I think there's something more to it, right? I think the cultural impact that Fortnite made at its moment in time when it was at its highest, the amount of people, the amount of young players it brought in, it created a new generation of gamers. Okay, very few games can do that. Okay,
Yeah.
But the key is that you said before Unreal Engine 2.0. Okay, and the reason why I say that that's the key is because at least the trends that I'm seeing right now in the gaming industry is the major players like Fortnite, Roblox, and many others are focusing on user-generated content. As in, this is going to be the new type of the new type of play, that we're already seeing. Deadrop is trying to throw its hat in that ring. At least it sounds like it. And if that is a world where we are all logging in to be more social, logging in to create, logging in to be able to do more than just play the game, then you have something. Then you have something really big.
Yeah.
Do you think like the user generated content is gonna be capped at like some point, like kind of like in Fortnite where the movement you can't really like you can change the movement by like doing like multipliers and stuff, but you can't really change how you run and stuff. But like Roblox, right? You change everything. You can change from you can literally change everything in Roblox, right? Like
Never played Roblox.
how far do you think like Deadrop's gonna go in terms of UGC?
To answer that in a quick manner, with Creative 2.0, you now can change the movement. You can change every single thing about the game that you want to. It was prior to 2.0 you couldn't, that people were capped. So I think we already saw the cap for Fortnite, that is, on what was possible, and then they completely blew that open. And just with 2.0 now, I think it's at a Roblox level. Is the best way to put it.
Interesting. I never played Roblox, so.
The thing that Roblox and Fortnite have in common is that they both have their own game engines to be able to take the user generated content to the next level. Like, their engines are being built and used to support that. In this case, Deadrop, is also going to be on Unreal, but it's not owned by Midnight Society. So I think and it depends on the developers too, but as Unreal develops further, I think we're going to see some of those new tools and aspects come into play in Deadrop, depending on what the developers think would benefit this community and this game. But that's the only real speculation I can do. I would just say watch Unreal to see what's done there, and then based on that, we have hints about what could happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of
plus
access.
crypto. Plus crypto,
yes.
Right.
I think we'll see a lot more accessibility for sure in the future with the UGC and everything we're going to see upcoming with Deadrop. I think there will be a ton of accessibility. I don't think they'll ever cap it in terms of like limit us with how much we can make. I think the things that we can make could be somewhat limited, like what we saw with Fortnite 1. But I think it's going to be a very bright future.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, and you know, to me, the sky's the limit. I mean, the developers can make it whatever they want to make. But let us know down in the comments what your guys' thought are about the concept of UGC and you know, the whole everything that we just kind of talked about. I just love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments, and we would love to read them and love to talk about them in the next podcast.
Yeah. Midnight Society's got a lot on their plate. That's why we love the
They
game.
do.
That's why we love the community. That's why we love everything about it, and that's why we love to talk about it, and that's why we started our podcast. I'd like to thank you
Absolutely.
guys. Thank you guys for joining us. You know, leave a like, leave a comment. We love to talk about this game and want to hear what you guys have to talk about it. And yeah, thank you guys a lot.
Catch y'all next time. Peace.
Later.
See ya.